Have you ever thought that a tiny act like giving someone a smile or a small, seemingly insignificant gift could change their entire life, and maybe even yours? Today, I'm going to share with you a story so incredible it's almost hard to believe, about a young woman working as a cashier in a small grocery store in the heart of a cold, bustling city, and a man no one could have expected. This story will make you wonder, is kindness truly the most powerful magic in the world? Join me on this emotional journey, and I promise you won't be able to look away until the very last second. In the heart of a sprawling American city where skyscrapers reached for the clouds and the streets buzzed with the hurried footsteps of millions, there was a quiet little corner that few ever noticed. It was Green Valley Grocery, a modest store tucked away in an old working-class neighborhood where ordinary folks stopped by to pick up essentials after a long, tiring day. The store wasn't anything special, no flashy lights, no fancy shelves, just a simple place with the faint smell of freshly baked bread in the air and the familiar sound of neighbors chatting. Yet, in its simplicity, it became a warm haven, a place where people felt like they were coming home. At the center of that warmth was Sophie Bennett, a 24-year-old woman with gentle brown eyes and a smile that could melt away any sadness. Sophie had been working as a cashier at Green Valley Grocery for 3 years. To many, her job might seem mundane, just scanning items and handing out receipts. But to Sophie, it was a mission. She remembered the names of regular customers, asked about their kids, and checked in on them during tough times. She always found a way to make people feel seen, even if it was just a simple question like, "How's your day going?" paired with a genuine smile. But behind that radiant smile lay a heartbreaking story few knew. Sophie had grown up in the foster care system, shuffled from one home to another, never truly having a place to call her own. She learned early on that the world could be a harsh, unforgiving place. There were days she slept on the streets, nights she went hungry but didn't dare ask for a bite to eat. Yet instead of letting those pains harden her heart, she chose a different path. She believed that if she could make just one person smile, even for a moment, her day had meaning. For Sophie, kindness wasn't just a choice. It was a way to heal the wounds deep within her own soul. One rainy afternoon, as Sophie was tidying up the magazines near the checkout counter, a man walked into the store. He wore a worn-out gray hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low over his face, looking no different from any other working-class person in the neighborhood. But something about him caught Sophie's attention. Maybe it was the way he hesitated at the door, as if unsure whether he should even step inside. Or perhaps it was the lines of worry etched into his face, visible even through the shadow of his cap. Sophie smiled and greeted him as she did with every customer. "Hi there, welcome to Green Valley. Let me know if you need help finding anything." The man gave a slight nod but didn't say much. He wandered through the aisles, picking up a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and a small pack of cookies, the cheapest kind the store carried. When he reached the checkout counter, Sophie noticed his hands trembling slightly. She didn't comment on it, instead handling his items with extra care, as if to offer him a bit of warmth through her small gestures. "That'll be $12.50, she said softly, her voice almost like a comforting whisper. The man fumbled with his wallet, his hands still shaking as he pulled out a crumpled $10 bill and a handful of loose change. His face flushed with embarrassment as he realized he was short. I think he'll put the cookies back," he muttered, his voice barely audible, his eyes cast down as if to avoid her gaze. Sophie paused for a moment, looking into his worried eyes, then smiled. "Don't worry about it. It's on me today. We all need a little sweetness in our day." The man looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice still hesitant. "Absolutely," Sophie replied, her smile unwavering. "Take care of yourself." "Okay." The man's expression softened, and for the first time he smiled. A faint but genuine smile. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me." Sophie handed him his bag, her heart swelling with a quiet joy. As he walked out into the rain, she couldn't help but wonder about the story behind this man. But she didn't dwell on it. She knew that sometimes a small act of kindness was all someone needed to get through a tough day. What Sophie didn't know was that this man wasn't just any ordinary customer. His name was Michael Grayson, the CEO of Grayson Enterprises, one of the largest retail chains in the United States, overseeing thousands of stores across the country. Including Green Valley Grocery, Michael had built his empire from scratch, starting with a single small shop in his hometown and turning it into a billion-dollar business over decades of relentless hard work. But somewhere along the way, he had lost something vital. He had become so focused on profits, on the numbers in quarterly reports, that he forgot the original reason he started his business: to make a difference in people's lives. Lately, Michael felt empty. He had everything money could buy: luxurious homes, expensive cars, vacations in tropical paradises. But he wasn't happy. He often woke up in the middle of the night asking himself, "What am I living for?" Endless meetings, decisions to cut costs for higher profits. All of it made him feel like he had lost himself. Determined to reconnect with his roots, he decided to visit his stores undercover, disguising himself as an ordinary person to see how his employees were treated and whether his company still held on to its founding values. Green Valley Grocery was one of his stops. He never expected to encounter someone like Sophie there. Sophie's small act gifting him that pack of cookies touched him deeply. In a world where people often looked out only for themselves, her kindness shone like a beacon in the dark. As he sat in his car after leaving the store, Michael couldn't stop thinking about her. He remembered the early days of his career when he personally served customers, when he believed that every smile, every thank you was what drove him forward. Sophie reminded him of the person he used to be, someone who believed in the power of kindness. Over the next few weeks, Michael found himself returning to Green Valley Grocery more often than he had planned. Each time he bought a few small items and struck up a conversation with Sophie. He learned about her passion for baking and her dream of one day opening her own bakery. She spoke about her dream with such enthusiasm, describing the cakes she'd tried making, the cozy space she imagined where people could sit, enjoy a slice of pie, and forget their worries, that he couldn't help but be inspired. But through their talks, he also noticed the sadness hidden in her eyes. She didn't speak much about her past, but he sensed she had been through a lot. He admired her resilience, her ability to find joy in the little things. Sophie's impact wasn't limited to Michael. She left a mark on many other customers as well. Once she noticed that Mrs. Clara, a regular who often bought a few cans of soup and chatted with her, hadn't come to the store for over a week. Worried, Sophie called to check on her and learned that the elderly woman was sick and unable to go out for groceries. After her shift, Sophie personally carried a bag of food to Mrs. Clara's house, walking over an hour in the pouring rain. When she arrived, Mrs. Clara burst into tears, holding Sophie's hand tightly and saying she was the only one who had thought of her during these lonely days. Sophie just smiled, wiped away the older woman's tears, and stayed to chat until she felt better. Another time, Sophie helped a young boy named Ethan, who often came to the store to buy cheap snacks with the few coins he'd scrounged up. She noticed he always wore torn clothes and looked hungry, his eyes filled with a quiet sadness. One day, she slipped an extra sandwich into his bag and pretended to forget to charge him for it. Ethan returned the next day, tears in his eyes as he thanked her. He told her it was the first full meal he'd had in days. From then on, whenever Ethan came by, Sophie found ways to ensure he had a little extra food, even if it meant dipping into her own meager paycheck. Stories like these weren't rare with Sophie. She always looked for ways to help, even in the smallest ways, because she knew that sometimes a bit of care could mean the world to someone. As Michael continued to visit Green Valley Grocery, his curiosity about Sophie grew. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story than what she let on during their brief conversations. Her kindness was so genuine, yet there was a lingering pain in her eyes that hinted at a difficult past. Determined to understand her better, Michael discreetly reached out to the store manager under the guise of a routine corporate check. He asked for general feedback on the staff, focusing particularly on Sophie, without revealing his personal interest. The manager, unaware of Michael's undercover visits, described Sophie as a hard-working and beloved employee, but mentioned offhandedly that she often seemed burdened by personal struggles, though she never complained. Unsatisfied with the vague response, Michael took it a step further. He used his resources at Grayson Enterprises to look into Sophie's background, ensuring it was done ethically and with respect for her privacy. What he discovered broke his heart. He learned about her years in the foster care system, the countless homes she'd been shuffled through, and the fact that she had been on her own since she was a teenager, scraping by with odd jobs before landing at Green Valley Grocery. He found out that she lived in a tiny, rundown apartment in a rough part of town, barely making ends meet despite working long hours. Yet despite all this, she poured her heart into helping others, as if her own pain fueled her need to bring light to those around her. Sitting in his office late one night, Michael stared at the file summarizing Sophie's life, a lump forming in his throat. He thought about the pack of cookies she had given him, a gesture that cost her more than he could have imagined given her circumstances. He realized that her kindness wasn't just a random act, was a reflection of a strength forged through unimaginable hardship. At that moment, Michael made a decision. He couldn't change Sophie's past, but he could help shape her future. He resolved not only to improve conditions for all his employees, but to personally ensure that Sophie received the support she deserved to pursue her dreams. He began planning something special for her, something that would honor her spirit and give her the chance she had never been afforded. This wasn't just about business anymore, it was personal. One day, after many visits, Michael returned to Green Valley Grocery, but this time he wasn't wearing his familiar gray hoodie. He walked in dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, his commanding presence drawing every eye in the store. Whispers spread like wildfire among the staff. "Is that Michael Grayson, the CEO of our company?" Sophie was at her usual spot by the checkout counter, and when she saw him, she froze. Her heart pounded, unsure of what was happening. You're Michael Grayson," she stammered, unable to believe her eyes. Michael smiled gently, his eyes full of sincerity. "Yes, Sophie, and I owe you an apology." Before her stunned gaze and the watchful eyes of everyone in the store, he explained everything. Who he was, why he had come here disguised as an ordinary customer, and how her kindness had changed him. He admitted to overhearing a conversation between her and the manager where she had asked for a raise but was coldly turned down with the excuse that the company didn't have the budget. His voice was heavy with emotion as he spoke. "You reminded me of what truly matters. I had forgotten the people behind the numbers on my reports. I had forgotten that people like you are the heart of this company. I want to make things right." But Michael didn't stop at an apology. In front of all the employees, he announced sweeping changes across the company, raises for every worker at every level, better benefits, including improved health insurance and opportunities for advancement for those who deserved it. Most astonishingly, he revealed that he had organized a surprise event right there at Green Valley Grocery, a ceremony to honor employees like Sophie, who quietly dedicated themselves and brought real value to the community. He publicly thanked her in front of hundreds of people, recounting the story of the pack of cookies that had transformed him. "That small act woke me up," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Sophie, you didn't just help me. You helped me see what I needed to do for thousands of others." Sophie stood there, tears streaming down her cheeks, unable to fathom what was happening. She had never imagined that her small gesture could lead to something so monumental. Michael didn't stop at words of gratitude. He offered Sophie a special position at the company, working in the product development department for baked goods, at the headquarters where she could learn from top chefs and hone her baking skills. He promised to support her in opening her own bakery under the Grayson Enterprises brand. "When she was ready, I believe your dream isn't just yours," he said. "It will bring joy to so many others." But what moved Sophie most wasn't the career opportunity. It was when her coworkers and regular customers at Green Valley Grocery came up to hug her, thanking her for always being a light in their lives. Mrs. Clara, still frail, was brought by her son just to express her gratitude. Ethan, the boy she had helped, ran up and hugged her tightly, saying, "Miss Sophie, you're the best person I've ever met." For the first time in her life, Sophie felt she truly belonged somewhere, a family she never thought she'd have. For Michael, he rediscovered the meaning of life. He decided to completely shift his business philosophy, focusing on creating real value for the community rather than just chasing profits. He began spending time meeting employees at every level, listening to their stories and ensuring no one was left behind. He realized that success wasn't about the money in his bank account, but about the lives he could touch and change. The story of Sophie and Michael is proof that kindness, no matter how small, can create waves of change beyond imagination. A pack of cookies didn't just help a man get through the day. It awakened a CEO, improved the lives of thousands of employees, and gave an orphaned girl the feeling of having a family. Kindness doesn't just heal the receiver, it heals the giver too. It's like a small pebble dropped into a pond, creating ripples that spread endlessly. So what about you? What can you do today to bring a little light to someone's life? Maybe it's just a kind word, a smile, or a small gesture like holding the door for someone behind you. Try it, and who knows, you might just change someone's life and your own. Never underestimate the power of kindness, because sometimes the smallest acts are the greatest miracles of all. Thank you for watching Sophie and Michael's inspiring story. If it touched you, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our kindness community. Drop a comment about a kind act that changed your life. I'd love to hear it. See you in the next video.